Our next session, ladies and gentlemen, is From STEM to STEAM, and it brings together the arts and the sciences. As awareness and understanding grows about the importance of fostering skills across the arts, as much as those of science, technology, engineering, and math, to ensure that creativity is at the heart of education. In this panel, we will explore how the education system can prepare itself for future opportunities and challenges related to the creative economy. Please join me in welcoming to the stage your moderator for this session, Dalia Mahmoud, academic consultant.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity to bring on stage Dr. Hani Asfour from DIDI and Mr. Amin Kharshash from the Louvre, and I'll further introduce them in a second. We also have joining us virtually Paul Collard. Hello, Paul. Is Paul here? Well, until Paul comes in, I'll give you the opportunity to talk about what you're passionate about the most and introduce yourself to our audience for about 3 minutes each, till hopefully Paul can join us. Hello and good morning.
Hello Dalia, thank you for having us. Hello, Amin, nice to meet you. And Paul,
Hello,
great
Paul.
to meet you as well. I'm very excited to be here because my passion is to, as an educator in design, is to rethink design as the means forward in the fourth industrial revolution to push creativity and to make design bridge between strategy and technology. So I truly believe this is the age of design, because in the fourth industrial revolution, as we go into augmented intelligence, the only field that hasn't been tapped in humanity is emotions. And designers, as empathetic problem solvers, this is our age. So I'm very excited. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you actually mentioned that, because we're going to delve into that once we start talking. Amin, tell us a little bit more.
Hello.
Hello, Amin.
Thank you for your invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. So my name is Amin Kharshash, and I'm in charge of mediation and interpretation at the Louvre, Abu Dhabi. Actually, when we refer to mediation and interpretation, to put it in simple words, is to create all the didactics, the tools, the medias, and the experiences that help connect the audience of the museum with its narratives and its collection. So I'm very excited and happy to be here with you. It's a pleasure, and can't wait to have the discussion starting.
It's a pleasure to have you. Paul, can you tell us a little bit about what you do? And I know it's going to be difficult to sum it up because 25 years of experience, but give us an intro.
So the heart of my work for the last 25 years or so has been to put creativity at the heart of learning in education systems. We started doing this in England, but gradually we spread out, and we've been working with national and local governments around the world in India, Pakistan, Thailand, Australia, Vietnam, Chile, and right across Europe. And so I share a passion, the same passion as your other panelists, and hugely enjoy doing it.
Well, let's talk about how we do that then. The first, I think the question to all of you, and I'd like to sort of start a conversation here. There's shift towards appreciating creativity and bringing it to the heart of education, as you just said, Paul, is fairly recent but significant. What do you think prompted that?
Could you say that again?
What do you think prompted the shift towards bringing creativity to the heart of education? I mean, you touched on it when you started talking about AI and the fourth industrial.
Today, if you want to have an edge over anything, you need to innovate and be creative. And suddenly the business world, which was, to be fair, a bit complacent and profit-driven, realized that if the customer can build loyalty and a desirability for their products. And I'm speaking now purely in economic terms, but this has repercussions everywhere. But when business leaders started realizing that a design-led business will generate more value, suddenly everyone started talking about design thinking. I was speaking to Hashim Sarkis the other day, he's the dean at MIT, and he said, you know what, Hani, we've been design thinking all our lives, but we didn't know it had a name, right? But now it's been labeled design thinking, because the key differentiator today when marketing strategies and engineering has reached a plateau, take cars for example, right? So the cars have pretty much plateaued in terms of engineering. The differentiation is minor, or then it's a jump in economic scale, so it's a more pricey car.
Yes.
But cars within the same range, within the same marketing thing, engineering-wise have plateaued. The only differentiator is your emotional connection to that car, which is design. So suddenly business said, oh, we need creativity in order to keep our edge going. And you have companies like Kia, like Audi in the car industry, or Apple, or even IBM. When they put design first, the value increases rapidly. Yeah,
yes.
you see, I mean, Steve Jobs, that was his main controversy at Apple when he said, Johnny Ive, the designer, will be leading the engineering, right?
Yes.
And that's the turnaround at Apple. That's when it happened. Yeah.
I mean,
Yes, I think that the link between learning and creativity has probably a lot to do with motivation. I mean, when you ask what motivates somebody to learn or to perform any other human action, often you find out that you have two answers. Whether it is an external motivation, getting paid, having a reward, a degree, or social praise, and schools have been doing that. And on the other hand, you have an internal motivation. It means something that you do, an experience that you live just for the sake of its own, of the experience itself, because it provides you with so much in enjoyment that you are highly cognitively focused, happy, and motivated. So to be in this kind of psychological states motivates one to learn. And this is actually what has been theorized more or less by the psychologist Csikszentmihalyi as the theory of flow for high-performing people. It is applied, of course, to athletes, high athletes, to chess players, to artists. And indeed, all the creative experiences have a high potential to let somebody be deeply engaged, be in this state of flow. So it creates a sort of virtuous circle when actually you're enjoying the experience so much, you're like completely engaged, so you're highly motivated, and this gives you the desire to continue to learn more and more.
perfect. Paul, what do you have to add to that?
It's hard, isn't it? So I agree strongly with what the other two panelists have already said. Creativity deepens learning, and I absolutely believe that. It's well theorized and it's well practiced. And but why it's come to the heart of education is economic. I absolutely accept that argument too. But the bit that I'd add to it is that as business realized that it would have to prioritize the creativity of its workforce, it found it couldn't find those creative people. And it turned to education and said, what are you doing? The people you produce for us to take on these new jobs do not have the skills that are necessary to be able to do it. And indeed, many of the skills necessary are actually knocked out of young people as they go through the education system, as good old Sir Ken Robinson has pointed out to us. So it was the economic imperative that required education to start changing in order to produce the workforce of tomorrow. that we need.
Yes.
So with that, I'm going to start with a question for you, Paul. You talk about education and educating the students so that they have the appropriate skills when they get into the market. How important will educator or professional training be as this shift takes hold? So how much do we have to invest in us as we continue to give to our students as they go out to sort of bridge that skill gap?
A huge amount.
Henny, how are you feeling?
Oh, yeah.
Bringing around this change in education is very complex.
Yeah.
And countries have been struggling with it over a long period. Now, the starting point for many was, well, we better go back and look at the curriculum again. And you've seen new curricula emerge. I understand there's a new curriculum coming out in UAE,
Yes.
exactly designed to try and tackle this gap in the education process. But what everybody discovered is that the new curriculum was only the start of a very long journey, because it doesn't work unless you skill up your workforce to deliver the new curriculum. And what they learned about the new curriculum was that it's not so much what you teach, and people spend hours working out, are we going to do long division, are we not going to do long division? It's how you teach that really makes the difference. And most of the teacher workforce around the world needs to fundamentally change their practice if they are going to be able to bring around this change in education that we're looking for. But you then go, well, who's going to retrain all our teachers? And there's lots of examples that I've seen where people go, well, we'll go back to the teacher training colleges and we'll get them to run courses. But the teacher training colleges themselves didn't have the skills to know how to do this new kind of teaching. They were the people who produced the old teachers who taught in the old ways. And therefore, there has to be a huge campaign to retrain trainers so that you are able to do this. Because, it can't be one or two people around the world who are going to come and do all this training for the teachers.
No.
The whole training teachers system needs to change.
Yes.
And in essence, what CCE has been doing for the last 20 odd years is retrain trainers. But that's exactly the point that we come in, so that there is a new training workforce launched onto the system, which is able to take on the task of retraining the teachers.
Well, that being said, and I know Paul touched on the new curricular changes here in the UAE to include design, technology, arts, and infuse it through K through 12, so more youthful audience. What role does the museum play to develop these sort of creative skills across the arts, especially within the community around you involving the youth?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing, of course, that we need to keep in mind is that the museum is a real haven for creativity. And this is something especially true, of course, for the Louvre Abu Dhabi, which is really sharing a universal story of creativity. Story of creativity made of connections, of exchanges, of crossroads between different cultures and civilizations, and throughout time and space, from the dawn of humanity to the modern world we live in. And being this perfect haven for creativity through these masterpieces, I believe that it makes the museum the perfect environment actually for the visitor, for the viewers, to learn how to see. And how to truly see the artwork, as opposed, of course, to just viewing them. So by progressively, upgrading or sharpening the viewing skill of the visitors, this will result in providing him really a decoding skill and some sort of, yes, an artistic enjoyment that will make him really benefit more and more from his visit. So this creative experiences that the museum is able to propose to the visitor is really at the heart of the museum experience. And speaking about the communities and the way to bring them, the first thing, of course, is on our side to work on how to facilitate this art experience, this aesthetic experience, to increase the understanding and appreciation of the arts. Of course, there's also the topic of relevancies. How do we display exhibitions or show that are relevant to the community? How do we make sure actually to have a clear link between our displays and the current and modern and everyday interests of the visitors? I think one of the most often asked question that a visitor could raise is that, okay, but what has this artifact and what this exhibition has to do with me? Why is it interesting? And our mission is to make this link very, very clear. Another aspect could be also to have more participatory experiences, of course. I think the greatest shows or exhibitions are those that are really asking the audience to commit, to provide feedback along the exhibition, to provide answers, evaluations, and to compare actually what they provide through the exhibition to some sort of other standards or even the answers of other visitors.
I'm going to come back to this. There's a lot more to unpack. But knowing that now the incoming students are probably going to be more skilled and more aware of the design and the arts and the role of design thinking into their future, how will educators need to evolve? What support do you think they're going to need to be successful? And answering that question, I'd also like to hear your thoughts on the role of the industry on that shift.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up where Paul and Amin discussed, and I think a common theme here is that engaged learning or immersive experiences is where we need to reform the way we teach, the methods that we teach, and we need to let people understand the relevance and the connection between those artifacts or creativity and our day-to-day life. And the way we approach design teaching is very much studio-based, as you know, right? And even the theoretical courses are not rote learning, they're more engaged learning, especially in courses that deal with new issues, like we have a course that I happen to teach, Design Futures, or my colleague teaches design across scales, where the students are engaged in the research as well. So typically the structure is that every week we give an introduction to a notion, and then half the week is a discussion, is a lecture, more or less, and the second half is the students exploring that idea and sharing their findings. So this engaged learning, which is an immersive experience, which is about rethinking how we teach design, is how we believe the way forward. And still, I feel it's a bit traditional, and we're looking for ways to actually go beyond those methods that we have. In terms of how we encourage that is through hybridization. So one aspect of our curriculum, which is, I think, unprecedented, is that
Unique. Yep,
the students after the first year have to combine two disciplines. They have to combine, because what happens is that they start seamlessly working across disciplines. So IDEO talks about a T-shaped person. We talked about a pie-shaped person. So not the pizza pie, but the Greek letter pi, right? So they are deep in at least two fields and able to work across different disciplines. And what the results we have seen, Dalia, are just mind-blowing, because for them, crossing boundaries is seamless and natural, right? But for our generation, crossing boundaries needs an effort.
It's difficult.
Right? But for them, it's completely natural, and they're showing us possibilities that we didn't see before. It's a very exciting time.
Talking about those possibilities, I'm going to again talk about the role of industry and R&D and bridging out into fields or entities that are not traditionally sort of melded with design. How do you think that would encourage, innovation and patenting ideas? And what is the role of the designer or creative person across, these boundaries that are clearly existing?
Design and creative skills are transferable. So we don't have to stay in a creative field. We can apply it, and I think, you mentioned that you can apply it to different fields, chess, or especially FIDE is happening now. If no one's been to the chess tournaments going on here in this building, so anyway, that's an off thing. Bridging with industry is essential. And the way we think, it's called the triple helix, right, in education, which is education, government, and industry. And Dubai is emergent in this field.
Yes.
So, for instance, even though we're design school, companies like Accenture are pretty much camping at the IDI. They're watching our students. They're working with the strategic design students. We're developing courses together with the Future Foundation, with Digital Dubai. All of them are interested, and with the MBRU, which is Mohammed bin Rashid University for Medical Sciences, because even in the medical school, there are people who are coming from Stanford, where design thinking was born, right? And they want to infuse design thinking into the medical program, so we're collaborating with them.
This is very promising.
Transferring creative skills into all these fields is happening, and people are realizing that, and it's a very exciting time. This is going to be my motto today.
Well, it sounds very promising, and I will be talking to you more about that as we proceed. Paul, how are you engaging different sectors from the field around you to help train and retrain thought and inspire educators to sort of cross those boundaries?
I think on the whole, the demand comes to us, if you see what I mean. The people have kept coming to us going, we have this problem, can you help to be able to do that? I think I very much like what both Hani and Amin are saying here. What the museum is capable of doing, and obviously your museum, is doing very well, is being able to demonstrate what an immersive learning environment is like for your visitors and the young people who come there. But for me, the real value is for teachers to come with their pupils into your learning environment and watch their pupils open up in that environment and begin to learn to see, which I think is a fundamental thing. We all think that because we've got eyes, we can see, but actually learning to see is hard. And focusing on the development of those skills, and looking at the joy of engagement amongst their pupils, and then thinking as teachers, how can I take this back into my classroom? Because I think the classroom is capable of being an engaging, immersive experience in the same way. And some of the techniques for being able to do that are exactly what Hani's talking about, which is not going, here's a series of facts that we have to learn, but exploring what the connection between the facts are. And that actually helps people understand the facts. It's about learning for understanding, not learning for remembering, which is the really fundamental shift there. every curriculum topic, piece of information, is in fact an answer to a question. And what, in approaching the young people throughout education, I think it's really important to focus on what's the question and get them interested in the question and the connection with the world. And then when you go, right, that's the question, and you start looking for the answers, then they absorb the answers, are interested in the answers, see the relevance of the answers which the curriculum is providing. So I think those are some of the many ways that we have to move forward with the classroom, is taking these ideas, the design thinking or the immersive experience, and looking about how can you transfer that back into the school, because that's what has to be happening every day in every classroom.
I mean, talking about transferring those skills and those ideas into the classroom and then moving out, and we talked about the role of the museum. How can education systems work with museums, and specifically here in our environment with the Louvre, to make this shift one that lasts, not something that we're going to experience for a couple of years and then just go back into our comfort zone? How can we engage with the museums?
Definitely more synergies, more integration in the curriculum, of course, and at really early learning stages, and probably more important than that, to have educators and teachers really considering the museum as really a supportive learning environment that they can use. I mean, the artifacts or objects that we exhibit are really charged emotional objects that they can use. It's really the base for experiential and object-based learning. And there's also an opportunity, as Paul was highlighting, in really co-creating together some of these highly engaging experiences, by referring and by using techniques, efficient techniques, proven techniques, like compelling storytelling, for example, use of gamification, looking for the emotional connection. And this is some of the things actually we are doing in the Children's Museum in the Louvre, Abu Dhabi.
Okay. How can universities work with you? Could you imagine projects that would engage faculty, research, students, and their imaginations or collective imaginations to work with you and imagine, new exhibitions?
Absolutely, and to consider like the entire museum as a laboratory for them. We tend to say that every object, every artwork actually is polysemic, so you can address it through different angles. So it's really a very fertile ground for universities to tap into this narrative, to this content, to link it to their discipline, and to be able to develop things together. We spoke also about the relevancy of what we are doing. And for example, the Children's Museum, which is, of course, really a dedicated space within the Louvre Abu Dhabi, is presenting exhibitions and experiences specifically tailored for kids, families, and also schools. So this is also a way to do it, when you create the right experience for the right audience.
So community, bringing in the community. Hani, DIDI obviously is very engaged at a community level with individuals, families, even by the virtue of your place being in the design district. What's the future of community engagement with DIDI?
Yeah, community engagement is essential, and we have a long way to continue to develop those relationships. At the moment, I think that our focus has been on high schools. I'm not sure if you know this program. It's a 5-year-old program that we've had. And this touches on what Paul was talking about and also what Amin was talking about. And I want to come back to certain points if we have time.
Yes, we do.
But the program that we have is called Project Design Space. And we, as DIDI, we go out to the industry and say, what are your pain points? And every year we get 4 or 5 real-world problems from real companies. And then we go to the schools and we say, do you want your children, do you want your students to solve the problem for the industry, a real-world problem? And we're talking about these are global companies, government agencies, small startups, NGOs that have real problems. And then last year we had over 5,000 students involved, school students involved. And the way we do it, and Paul, I think you would like this, is that our team with an organization called Bond Education, we go to the schools and we teach the teachers how to teach design thinking. So then all these schools, and I think we had over 100 schools.
Wow.
In the Emirates, and now we're moving to Saudi and elsewhere in GCC because there's such demand for it. So we train the teachers on design thinking, and we go with them from November through March. With the students, we run workshops for them. We teach the teachers, but we also run workshops with the students for additional skills, pitching skills, prototyping skills, feedback sessions, etc. And it's a very intense period. And in the end, the winners end up working with the company. And you see these, 10th grade students working with someone like Adidas, and it's just been incredible.
It's very inspiring.
As an experience. So,
and do they choose to come in to design education?
Some do, but that's not the intention. The intention is to spread the word about design thinking and its value to the society, bridging industry with schools, and the IDI became a platform to build that community. And I started my comment saying that we need to do more. So now we've done it, and we continue to do it. It's been very successful with schools. Our next step now is to go into industry and to build that relationship at a higher level, including the design district where we are. So we have several initiatives that hopefully we will see in the next couple of years.
Inshallah. I wish you well.
Can I just add a comment about...
Please.
Paul, I really loved what you said about that we need to learn to understand and not to remember. And we also need to learn to see, right? Just having vision. And this reminds me of this dialectic between vision and visuality. Right? So vision is our ability to see, but visuality is actually the cultural level of seeing, and this is where museums come in, right? So it's not just looking at the objects, but actually deriving meaning from them. So vision and visuality, I think, is a wonderful theme that's emerging today.
Raising the levels of visual literacy.
Telling stories, this is what you refer to a lot. I mean, when you're looking, you connect it with stories, you start deriving meanings from it, you start interpreting things, you start then transferring that knowledge into other fields. Right? So this is visuality. So it's not enough to have vision. You need both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Paul, we heard about expanding into the region and knowing the programs that you work on. How can we engage sort of regional culture and practices to enhance the kind of programs we need to move forward? I mean, I know storytelling is huge in our region, from one end to the other, from Baghdad to Mauritania. We're storytellers. How can we use our heritage and our innate knowledge to continue to move forward, in your experience?
I absolutely loving listening to Annie and Amin and the things that they have to say. I love that project of getting high school kids working on real world problems with big companies. This is replicated a program in Thailand that I've been supporting. And there, where we're dealing with many schools in very rural areas, is we train the teachers to take the pupils out into the community and to ask the community what their problems are that they would need solving and coming up for solutions with them. I've also seen the same program and the same approach being done very successfully in India. These techniques are incredibly important for connecting schools with the communities and building those relationships, which is so important, because another part of the very difficult journey that starts with your new curriculum and then goes through training all the teachers and changing schools and all that kind of thing, is that you have to build a demand for this kind of education in the community. Because if the community is resistant to these approaches, then the school's not going to change. And so forth. Parents are incredibly influential on what actually happens in the school. And these devices of getting the pupils out into the community, looking at the community's problems, and coming up with solutions demonstrates the value of this kind of education to the communities in which they live. For me, listening to Hani is absolutely eye-opening, because he's obviously a brilliant university teacher, professor, leader, and so forth. For me, one of the biggest problems to overcome is actually the universities, because the traditional style of education was essentially designed to serve universities, to give them the students with the skills that universities want, which is to acquire a huge amount of knowledge and be able to remember it and summarize it and so forth, which is what everybody then does when they get to university. And therefore, what I'm finding is that when we go to the universities, who have to play a key role in this transformation of education, they intellectually go, oh yes, we completely understand that, but they are deeply conservative forces. They are not like Annie, and I wish they were, and finding ways to change those universities so that they put creative learning at the heart of what they do is very hard, but it's so wonderful to see that it is happening in some places, as Annie explains.
Thank you.
So as we tailor on and close off, I wanted to talk about some of the challenges we have. Obviously, budget, understanding and budget. How can we continue to innovate in our practices? How can we inspire change that's obviously in the world around us, it's moving very quickly, you know. How can we move forward without having the information we need, without having the budgets we dream of to empower our staff and our students to move forward? Do we have any ideas? Do we have any wishes moving forward? I know collaboration is key, right? So we're going to have to depend on each other, whether it's from within the universities or schools or institutions, culture institutions around us. But beyond that, what can we do to creatively solve this problem? Design thinking, here we go, honey.
Yeah, put me on the spot.
I know, I will.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the challenges are tremendous,
Yes.
as you know. And Paul touched on the dichotomy between conservative institutions
Yes.
that have checkboxes that they have to fill, and progressive institutions like ourselves. We are charged to be innovative, and then they are benchmarking us against, okay, what's the precedent here? And so this for me is the biggest challenge, because we're being asked at one level to reform and push forward, etc. But then the system says, well, how does this fit? Who else is doing this? And so we have, this is our challenge, that we need to, and the only way to do it is to have conversations, to have discussions, to have evidence to show that this is where we're going, this is our mission, and I'm proud to say that we haven't graduated anyone yet. As you know, our first graduation is in June, inshallah. And there's the Global Grad Show, which collects the best graduating projects in design.
Yes.
We haven't graduated anyone. We've had 17 projects in that show over the past 4 years.
Okay, so
Thank
that speaks
you.
for
I'm so
itself.
proud of the students and the faculty who got us there. But it's testimony to that we must be doing something right. Okay? And this is the evidence that I'm going to use. So it has to be hard evidence. And our biggest challenge, Dalia, is that everything we do is not tangible, right?
Okay.
So we need to make it tangible. We need to translate what we do into tangible, measurable results so we can speak the language of the conservative mindset, because they follow measures. But in creativity, how do you measure that? We need to learn to do that. So conversations, talking, showing evidence, and moving everyone in the right direction, keeping focused on what is our ultimate goal, which is to build creative talent. This is how we do it.
How can institutions help? How can cultural institutions help? Sorry, I'm struggling with my cold here, so let me speak a little louder.
I think by always innovating and proposing the highly engaging experiences that let really the audience connect with the institution, and through that connection to connect with creativity. For example, one of the founding principles that we follow in the Children's Museum is to exhibit original artworks. Really original artwork, I insist on that, not replicas, because it's important really to display these original creations at the level of children. The other principle that would really increase the engagement is to think of the experience as a really highly edutainment experience. So the current exhibition that we have is about emotions. We wanted to work on that topic and to stress the link between art, visual arts, and emotions, because it's something really important today, especially when we are going through this entire pandemic. We felt that it was important to spark a discussion with families and kids about emotional developments, emotional well-being, and we thought that art could play a role on that. One of the techniques, as I was saying previously, that we really extensively use is gamification. We have a lot of digital interactives in this space, for example, that are cohabitating with original artworks. But we wanted to find a way to have children completely focused and looking really confidently at the original masterpieces. So one way to do it was to design games, actually, or challenges and puzzles that children cannot solve without looking at the original artworks. So it was really a perfect solution to create an engaging experience, also to spark a discussion between the parents and the kids, and that's sometimes as important as the content itself.
Paul, we have a couple of minutes left. We talked about edutainment, gamification, needing evidence, and celebrating successes before they are documented. What could you leave us with? Words of wisdom. How do we move forward?
I want to strongly support the importance of emotion in learning. The OECD recently published a book on teaching maths called 10 Lessons for Maths Teachers, which was based on their analysis of all the PISA maths tests and what makes the most effective maths teaching and learning. And they put emotion at the heart of it. They said, you've got to bring emotion into maths. And lots of maths teachers were horrified. But it's absolutely key to this process. And in fact, the learning environment in which learning is deepest is a learning environment in which the learners are physically, socially, emotionally, and intellectually engaged simultaneously, because that's when they are completely present. They are absolutely in the room with you. Everything is awake and learning. And that's, of course, why you get the deepest learning from this process. And on the question of evidence, I think what's desperately needed is better thinking about what evidence is that when we go to the evidence part, and of course we need evidence that things are working, this is the place where the conservative institutions move back onto their territory and go, well, it's the exam, isn't it? It's the exam. And so forth. And you go, no. It's what the teacher can see has changed in the child or young person that is really important. And it's that assessment that is absolutely key. And how they can evidence what they are seeing through different things. And therefore, I think evidence is important, but we have to rethink what evidence is.
Thank you for this, and for that, our time is up. Thank you for listening to us. We're happy to engage with you throughout the day, and have a wonderful last day here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.